Really appreciate this. Good.
Thank you, Phil, and good morning to everyone. I can't even express how happy am today just to see so many people here with us today. And I know there's so many more following online for this, what I consider to be a remarkable moment. One of the other board members has deemed me the sewer gal. So, I'm going to wear it with honor. So, having worked in the wastewater field in some form or another for over 25 years now, it is not often that so many people who are passionate about this area are able to come together and just share their expertise and to work on, a project like this. This really might be the first time that a state has really pulled together so many different people throughout the state with expertise in different areas to really take a look at what are the needs for wastewater. It's often just a system that is underground, it's just forgotten about, it's over there, and we really don't dive in and understand what are the true needs. In 2012, California became the first state to recognize the human right to water. Every human being has the right to safe, clean, affordable, and accessible water adequate for human consumption, cooking, and sanitary purposes. In 2016, the state board identified the human right to water as a top priority and core value of the water boards. 3 years later, the state board began conducting annual drinking water needs assessment, advancing the goals of human right to water. When we look at how many drinking water systems there are through the state, there are around 3,000 community systems. And if you look at the addition of schools, daycares, and hospitals and campgrounds, there's over 8,000. Now, when we look at wastewater, there are estimated 3,000 domestic wastewater collections and treatment systems permitted by the water boards through individual waste discharge requirements or NPDES permit. In addition, in 2015, American Housing Survey estimates that 6.4% of California households are reported as not having connected to a sewer system, resulting in an estimated 1.2 to 2.5 million on-site wastewater treatment systems in California. That's a lot. A lot's happening out there. And, there's times where we also don't know what's occurring as far as a single home being connected to perhaps a septic tank and, a leach field. And we don't know what state that individual system may be in. The septic systems are locally permitted and required to comply with applicable requirements. The safe management of human waste through these wastewater sanitation systems is crucial to ensuring every human and has the right to safe drinking water, and it's also for environmental health. The water boards lack a statewide comprehensive set of data for California's wastewater sanitation systems, including, but not limited to, statewide system inventory, the geographical area locations and service boundaries, siting and design characteristics, network connections between facilities and upstream, downstream users, nexus to drinking water sources and associated risks, current population served, infrastructure failures and associated repair costs, factors that inform technical, managerial, and financial capacity of the system owners and operators to support the development of statewide wastewater needs assessment. The state board recognizes that without collecting a comprehensive data set for California's wastewater systems, determining comprehensive solutions and identifying costs associated with addressing systems at risk of threatening public health goals will remain unresolved. Wastewater sanitation systems are aging, and an assessment is needed to determine which systems have the potential to release harmful pollutants such as bacteria and nitrate in surface water and groundwater that may also serve drinking water systems. Collecting information and developing criteria to create a statewide risk framework to prioritize funding for California's wastewater systems is essential to effectively utilize infrastructure investments. This is particularly important for California's most vulnerable populations, including disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged communities with inadequate or failing sanitation systems and threatening access to healthy drinking water supplies. This is a critical project to help advance the human right to water. And so, it's with great enthusiasm that I welcome all of you and really am looking forward to this project moving forward. It just, I cannot express how happy I am to see that we've done the drinking water needs assessment. We're continuing to move forward with it. And now, to me, this is the other half of the project, is really taking a look at the wastewater side and getting an understanding of how wastewater is also impacting our environment and our drinking water, and making sure that we're moving both of these pieces forward to ensure that we have a healthy environment and we have healthy drinking water supplies for all Californians. So thank you all for being here and lending your expertise to this process.
Thanks both to Phil and to Board Member Morgan for your opening remarks. We're going to jump a little bit more into the project, of course, and an overview and what we've been up to so far, as well as, again, half the meeting will be devoted to advisory group member introductions and questions and comments. Before we do that, we want to introduce you to the team contracted by the state board to really undertake the technical work on the project. It's a large team. Again, I'm coming to you from UCLA as the principal investigator, but we're really partnering closely with the Office of Water Programs at Sacramento State, with the UC Agricultural and Natural Resources Extension Unit, which is housed at UC Davis, as well as the University of Massachusetts Amherst. So we want to briefly introduce sort of all of the members of that team, both so you can put a name to a face and probably also an email address, because you'll be seeing them in future correspondence and really diving into details in future meetings. But before we do that, I want to pass it over to the three folks at the board, although a lot more folks at the board are involved, as you'll hear, but the three folks who are really managing the project. And I'll pass it over to Danya Jimerson to do that.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, members of the advisory group and the public. I am Danya Jimerson, and these are my colleagues, Laurel and Stephanie. Laurel, if you can, and Stephanie, if you can wave. Thank you. We are with the State Water Board, and specifically the Division of Water Quality. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more about our backgrounds and the rest of the team members, please refer to the welcome package that it was set in your sitting places. And yeah, enjoy the meeting, and thanks again for being here.
Good morning. My name is Maureen Kerner. I'm with the Office of Water Programs at California State University, Sacramento, fondly known as Sac State. And we have a team of research engineers and scientists, as well as a professor in economics from Sac State joining us. So Caitlin Leo and Dakota Keene are in our room with us today, and they've been key leads for the data collection that we've been completing so far. Other additional research engineer, Khalil Lazaic, Harold Leverance, and Jonathan Kaplan is the professor from the economics department. And then we have Professor Emeritus from Civil and Environmental Engineering, John Johnston.
Thanks, Maureen. At UCLA, again, obviously we have myself as well as Ariana Hernandez, who you've already heard from, and help make this meeting possible, I would say, with Danya and others. So thanks to both of you. And you'll be hearing more from Ariana in the course of this meeting, really helping manage the project overall from the UCLA side, as well as Grace Harrison, who's online and helping manage some of the risk assessment elements and other elements of the needs assessment. We also have several students who aren't pictured here who come in and out of the project.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And I also just wanted to get a couple housekeeping things out of the way while I'm here. The restrooms for those in person are just through the door to the left. And then there will be a public comment period that will be at the end. We're anticipating this meeting will end at 12:30, have a 15-minute recess, and then a public comment period. And the advisory group members are welcome to stay. And Laurel just put into the chat how to provide public comment, I believe, or will be providing it in the chat shortly. So thank you very much.
And next, I'm going to pass it over to Samuel Sandoval Solis to introduce the team from UC Agricultural Natural Resources Extension.
Buenos días a todos. Good morning, everyone. Here, I don't think you can see me on the screen. I can see it on the back of Greg's, but not myself anyway. My name is Samuel Sandoval Solis. I'm a professor at the University of California, Davis, and a cooperative extension at UC A&R. And this is the team that you're seeing that is a mixture between Davis A&R, Eric Pors from the California Institute of Water Resources, Rachel Schellerberg, and is a project scientist, and Erica Casio Madrazo, that she has been also been helping us on the survey that we were going to explain a little bit more later. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, Sam. And then last but not least, we have a team from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and I'm going to pass it over to Nelson to introduce that team.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all and be on this meeting today. My name is Nelson Deleuze. I'm a research assistant professor at University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And our other team members here at UMass are Emily Kumpel, an associate professor in civil and environmental engineering, and Jay Tanasia, an associate professor in computer science. Thanks.
Thanks, Nelson. And again, you'll be hearing a lot more from, I don't want to say every single one of those folks, but a lot of those folks in future meetings. Now we're going to transition to advisory group member introductions, and I'm going to pass the mic back to Ariana to facilitate that.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to do it alphabetically via first name, and I have a slide coming next, so you know who you're going after. But if you could please introduce yourself with your name, organization, wastewater expertise, and interests. And for folks in person, just a reminder when you are finished speaking to unclick the microphone to not have any echo or feedback. But first, we'll start with Anne-Marie Mendoza, who is online.
Anne-Marie Mendoza. Hello, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Mendoza. I am currently a PhD candidate at UCLA in urban planning, where I specialize in tribal indigenous planning. And I focus on the Los Angeles River. I'm also a board member for Tongva Land Conservancy. And I don't have any expertise in wastewater per se, but I do have expertise in tribal engagement for various planning projects. So I'm hoping to add that voice to this cohort. Very nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Carlos Moran.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Carlos Moran. I am from the LA area. My expertise here is more on stormwater management and specifically environmental justice issues. I also serve on the Ocean Protection Council's Environmental Justice Advisory Board. I am a part-time professor at University of Southern California in the School of Social Work. And I am newly appointed as Executive Director of Northeast Trees. It's good to see some familiar faces here and looking forward to engaging with all of you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Casey Walsh. I'm a professor of anthropology at UC Santa Barbara, and I specialize in water use and management from an anthropological social science perspective. I'm not specifically focused on wastewater. I'm more an expert in groundwater use and management and the current ongoing effort to regulate groundwater in California. But that, of course, includes reuse of water and things like that. I am an expert in working with disadvantaged communities and doing a sort of, both ethnographic and survey research in small, hard to reach populations. So I'm happy to contribute what I can to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Catherine Coleman Flowers, but I do not believe I saw her name on the Zoom attendee, so I'll pause a moment in case I missed that. Okay. Next we could throw it to Debbie Mackey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Debbie Mackey. I am the Executive Officer of the Central Valley Clean Water Association, which is an organization that represents wastewater treatment plants in the Central Valley. For background, I'm a civil engineer with licensed in both California and Nevada. My experience has really been with communities, many of them very, very small or serving water and wastewater and looking at the needs, looking at protection, and then really balancing that with cost, environmental benefit, those areas, making sure that there's a standard of service. And another role that I play in the Central Valley is I'm very involved in CV Salts, which is a really important initiative to bring balance to our salt content in the Central Valley, but also to make sure that nitrate in drinking water is safe and available for Central Valley residents.
Thank you. Next we have Eric Oriana.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Eric Oriana. I work as a senior policy advocate for Community Water Center, and we're an environmental justice nonprofit based in California, Central Valley, and Central Coast. We've been engaged primarily on drinking water, but a lot of the communities we work with who are rural also have wastewater challenges. And so we were really excited about the opportunity to participate. We have engaged extensively in the development of the needs assessment on the drinking water side. So just want to continue to support and ensure that the priorities of environmental justice communities are considered. So thanks a lot for the opportunity and excited for the work this group will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have James Fenelon.
It's a good day. Greetings to my relatives. I am James Fenelon, professor of sociology at California State University, San Bernardino, and director of the Center for Indigenous People Studies. We were involved in a number of water studies, especially the Santana Watershed Project Authority along the Santana River, and we were just moving to the Los Angeles River, so greetings to my relative there a few years ago, and coming up with a lot of significant work, but not wastewater needs. Both of our native team leaders passed to the spirit world, and I went to the East Coast for 2 years, and so I've returned back on out here. We've also working a little bit with the Chemehueve people on some of the magnificent work they've been doing out there, and some of the Cahuilla people in the Coachella Valley. Interested in learning more, working with you. It's a great pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. Next we have Jared Vasco.
Hi, good morning. Jared Voskuil, the Director of Regulatory Affairs for CASA, the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. CASA represents over 135 wastewater agencies and municipalities that engage in the collection, treatment, recycling, and resource recovery of wastewater. And we're very honored and excited to have this meeting today for the Technical Advisory Group. Our member agencies likely would, in a lot of instances, be the primary sewer and treatment agency extending the service to connect with the agencies that, or with the communities that we're working with today. And towards that end, our agencies do have a lot of experience in this front. There's, a lot of layers to these types of projects from an extension to service standpoint. And we support the human right to sanitation and engaging in these projects, but we also know there are just hurdles to having them realized. And so this effort here really is going to go a very far way into eliminating those hurdles or helping provide a path into how to navigate those hurdles. And so in terms of our member agencies, I mentioned those are the ones that likely would be enveloped into projects to extend service, but we also have associate members who are engineering firms and consulting firms that do a lot of the technical work to provide the support for these. And so we also are going to provide that connection and bridge to those members to be involved in the project through our involvement in the technical advisory group. In some instances, these associate member agencies have surveyed large service areas. I think in one case, they identified something like 20,000 septic systems at a cost of about $1 billion in maybe 2021 dollars to convert all those into getting them sewered, which wasn't on the table as an idea, but just to kind of get a sense of what's the universe to get 20,000 systems onto a sewer in that community. It was about $1 billion. And so I think a lot of that experience doing it more locally is being provided by the technical advisory group and the members of the needs assessment team. So we're happy to provide that. The other hurdle, as we're thinking about it, is going to be the cost. And so right now, I think the Clean Water State Revolving Fund is kind of being conceived as a mechanism to provide the funding for a lot of this work. But our member agencies rely on that fund for capital improvement programs and existing compliance-related efforts. And so to us, it makes a lot of sense to establish a concurrent fund like the Safer Drinking Water Fund that developed out of the needs assessment. But in this case, we have the acronym is the Smarter Fund, which is kind of de facto working title. But that would be the Sewer Maintenance Assessment, Rehabilitation, Technical Assistance, Extension of Service, and Resources Fund. This kind of covers all the bases, but that would, in effect, ensure that the Clean Water State Revolving Fund isn't being the source of solutions for these issues that are identified through this effort, and that when this effort completes itself and the needs are really identified, we have a funding pathway that would be established to then begin to support it right away. And so I know there's needs for a good budget year, but the thought is we can do a lot of the groundwork now. And when that rainy day comes, we'll be ready to get that fund propped up to really provide the next step to this whole process to make these goals realizable. So with that, thank you to everyone being here today for this discussion. I'm very happy and honored to see the water board members and staff engaged in this regionally and locally. And I know our members are very engaged too and look forward to participating and supporting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next, we have Jasmine Diaz.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you sound good.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Jasmine Diaz. I currently work for the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, RCAC. I'm a licensed civil engineer in California and also a grade 5 wastewater treatment plant operator. I have over 10 years of experience as a wastewater/recycled water engineering consultant, and I'm currently working for RCAC, which is a nonprofit that works with disadvantaged small rural communities to provide technical assistance. I currently manage the Septic to Sewer program, where we use clean water SRF funds allocated by DFA to provide wastewater technical assistance from rate studies to infrastructure, where we actually hire engineers to develop feasibility studies or design improvements for these disadvantaged communities.
Thank you. Next, we have Gian Savin, and my apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Oh, it's no problem. I'll say it correctly now. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jean Sabin. I'm one of the public at large members for the advisory group. I'm currently serving as a federal civil servant. I'm the Water Compliance Program Manager for NASA Ames Research Center. So I'm the designated legally responsible official for all of NASA Ames drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, and recycled water programs on site. And just a disclaimer, my opinions and experience are my own on this advisory group. I'm not representing the federal government in any way. I've previously served as a water resources control engineer, a staff engineer for the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Drinking Water in Riverside County. So that was enforcement and support for drinking water systems in Southern California. I'm also a grade 5 wastewater treatment plant operator with experience running McMurdo Station, Antarctica's wastewater treatment plant for the National Science Foundation. I served for 4 years as on the board of directors for the Florida Resources Conservation District, which owns and operates the Oak Grove Water District, which is south of Sacramento. And I'm, quite interested in wastewater resource recovery. Part of my graduate research was focused on that. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm agree with all of the current speakers and advisory group members. The human right to sanitation is necessary and needs to be supported, and it's an honor to serve with all of you.
Thank you, Jean. Next, we have Jesus Tutui Montes.
Wow. So I'm Tutui, born and raised in Visalia. Listening to people's bios, I ain't got no credentials. I'm just a simple person doing some simple work. I do have a passion for being of human service. That's why I'm here. Give voice to those that can't be here. And I was thinking while I was listening to everybody too, that not just those disadvantaged communities or people that ain't represented, but the struggles that others have done for generations. And I'd like to, honor my mom, that I can be the man that she always hoped I would be, and that I can be of service and continue to be of service to each and every one of you. And for those also, bring a indigenous perspective into the work ahead for us. I think is also very important, and I want to mention that. And hope to bring that to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kayla Villegas.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Villegas. I am the Water Justice Director at Orange County Environmental Justice. And part of our work there, we like to prioritize our community science organizing model, where we build a community relationship, work with residents, get to know them, and then identify an environmental justice issue together. Ideally, we like to partner up with an academic partner. So in the past and throughout my water work, we have partnered up with the University of California in Irvine and develop an action plan and then mobilize. So as of lately, we've been able to outreach to community residents and assist them in documenting stormwater runoff pollution through our Photo Voice project. So understanding that how stormwater pollution can impact our communities, what are the health risks associated with such pollution, and then what to do about it. Most importantly, how can we bring up those concerns to local officials, and then we also are emphasizing and expanding into water quality testing. A lot of folks, it's one thing to be able to capture evidence and document pollution through photos, but it's also very helpful to expand that into water testing and see what exactly is there in the water at the microscopic level. Our research is headed a little bit into PFAS, and so understanding like what are the PFAS levels, especially in northern Orange County cities where a lot of disadvantaged, marginalized communities live in, and then trying to advocate for better solutions and long-term implementation strategies that can address PFAS. And then last but not least, we are also expanding our water justice work to working with Indigenous tribes in the Tongva and Hachiman nations through our Indigenous custodian stewardship. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Keith Freitas.
Good morning. How does my voice sound? Sometimes I talk a little too loud. Am I okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. So my name's Keith Freitas. I'm president of nonprofit Tend the Garden, Inc., California nonprofit. I'm also that nonprofit owns a piece of property in a small uh, uh, community called San Joaquin, where we just received an orphan fund grant to come in behind a 50-year-old gas station development and to test, monitor, and clean the area if necessary, so that the city is not being contaminated by non-point source pollution. So I'm working on that project right now. There was only 3 people awarded that grant in the state, and our nonprofit was one. I'm also a produce safety trainer through a PSA grower training course, and I member of a import-export training for the Centers of International Trade Development. I spent 4 years at Gallo Winery on the pulp and sluice juice recycling system, and my experience with Gallo really helps me focus in on it and want to participate in this from a grand scheme of things to ultimately be able to be involved in a project where we can recirculate wastewater and bring it back into the old agricultural loop. And that would be my ultimate goal. I'm also a member of EJAG, Environmental Justice Advisory Group, under the Valley Air District. We serve for the board of the Valley Air District and Cal EPA. I'm a small family farmer. We farm organic lemons right now in Fresno County, east along the Kings River, and I am dealing with the SGMA compliance rules that's in place. I farm along the upper Kings River area, so we have a lot of erosion sediment control projects going on. And also on our farm, we have a septic system that combines with domestic wells and ag wells. So it's a very complex system, and I'm very happy to be a part of this group so that I can try to see how best to balance those complex side-by-side systems. I really look forward to being on this advisory group, and I appreciate the work that the state's doing, and I appreciate the work that the school is doing to try to help us understand our wastewater challenges and to see if we can't loop some of this wastewater back into the agricultural system and eventually maybe one day into the drinking water system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Laura Ramos.
Good morning. My name is Laura Ramos. I'm the interim director at the California Water Institute at Fresno State. And what brings me here is some of the work that we're doing to help some of the unincorporated communities with some of their drinking water problems. We've also done a lot of feasibility studies and just other research going on at the university. But just personally, I grew up in a in an unincorporated community or in a small community. And I've seen the creativeness that comes from living in a community where there isn't wastewater treatment. And so I bring that experience and just some of what I've seen in these communities that we can help improve all of that for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Locke Dressler.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Locke Dreisler, and I'm the general manager for the San Ynez Community Service District. We provide the collections for a small portion of the San Ynez Valley, and we're working on septic to sewer with portions of the community as well. And we also work with the Chumash doing their wastewater treatment. I've been in the wastewater industry on and off for about 25 years now, and I'm very interested in being a part of the advisory group. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Maria Kennedy.
Hi, good morning. My name is Marilena Kennedy, and I've worked in disadvantaged communities probably now for going on 20 years, starting out with Prop 84 with SAPA, the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority. That's where I started as a consultant. Back then, I did several septic to sewer conversion projects that involve community outreach. I've spent a lot of years also in working in drinking water, basically helping coordinate the building of wastewater treatment plants and also drinking water treatment plants. Now currently involved in several septic to sewer conversions in Southern California, doing the community outreach and also the construction management, as well as the project management. Oftentimes, I write the grant for the state to the state board to get the funding to get these projects off the ground. And I'm very excited to be part of this group. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Manu Letty.
Good morning. I'm Minu Letty. I'm currently the Chief Scientific Officer at WWES, and I have experience in water quality and water management. And previously, I served as the Principal Scientist at the Orange County Water District, and currently, I serve as a member on some of the national committees, such as the National Academy of Sciences and AWWA. I have background in advanced wastewater treatment, water reuse, groundwater protection, watershed monitoring, and I'm involved in modeling for algal blooms. My interest is really in small wastewater systems in disadvantaged communities so that they're not systems that are kind of hidden underground. My experience with federal and out-of-state advisory groups has led me to identify at-risk wastewater systems, and I've been able to, and I hope to also promote access to clean and safe wastewater systems. So I look forward to collaborating with you all because I think this is a very important project, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael McKenzie.
I am Michael McKenzie. I go by Mac. I work for Veolia Water, one of the largest environmental companies in the world. I started off in wastewater and drinking water as a laborer, building drinking water and wastewater facilities and doing underground conveyance systems. And I transitioned into an operator in training for wastewater. I worked my way up to a grade 5 wastewater certification and drinking water and water treatment certifications. I am currently a project manager for the Novato wastewater treatment plant in the Bay Area, Novato, California. My expertise would be in operations and maintenance of wastewater treatment facilities, conveyance systems, collection systems, and pump stations, as well as some capital project experience. My interest here as a hiring manager is making sure that we have qualified and certified operators to operate and maintain these systems, especially with large scale retirements coming up, and making sure that we get public outreach and education out to high schoolers and college age people to make sure that we have a workforce that can operate everything effectively and maintain these systems. I'd like to thank everybody for organizing this group, and I appreciate all the diversity and different backgrounds of everybody joining this group. I think it's great to be able to get different perspectives from all over the state and different backgrounds. So I appreciate that, and I look forward to what we can get accomplished here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Miguel Mendez.
Hi, everyone. This is Miguel Mendez. I'm an environmental scientist with the San Francisco Estuary Institute. We study a variety of different emerging contaminants, particularly in the Bay Area. And one of our key focuses is looking at wastewater effluent. And so although we're predominantly in a big area, we already know that wastewater treatment has potential issues that we're hoping to help with. And I think we can use that expertise, especially to help with smaller treatment systems. We're also more interested in learning about where we can help, particularly in projects related to environmental justice. And I think this advisory group is a great way to start getting that type of experience. So I'm really excited to work with everyone and look forward to everything we do here.
Thank you. Next, we have Nell Green Nyland.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nell Green Nyland. I'm a senior research fellow at the Wheeler Water Institute in the Center for Law, Energy, and the Environment at UC Berkeley School of Law. My research is focused kind of at the intersection of law, science, and policy. And in the past, I've researched a number of issues that are relevant to the wastewater needs assessment, including sewer system conveyance and capacity challenges, wastewater permitting processes, innovation in the wastewater sector, small water system consolidations, and water reuse. I've also worked on other interconnected water issues, including groundwater management and drought response. And I'm really excited to be involved in this important effort to assess wastewater needs across California. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Nicole Greenwood. However, I'm not sure if she was able to join today, so I'll pause to see if she came in. Okay, I think we'll go to Oscar Cisneros.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Oscar Cisneros. My knowledge and expertise is very limited, but over the last 5 years, I've worked as a community development specialist with Self-Help Enterprises, a nonprofit organization. And we work closely with low-income rural residents to assist them with the development and management of community facilities. We research, package, loan and grant applications, and administer funds for water systems and wastewater systems. We work with community residents, water boards, engineers to facilitate planning projects and development. We help local communities develop methods of ensuring proper operation and maintenance to their existing water and wastewater systems. Like I said, we work with federal, state, county, regional, and other nonprofit groups to assist communities with water and wastewater needs. And I just kind of want to share a hurdle or a challenge that I've seen working with on wastewater septic to sewer projects or water projects that I've encountered, and I know others that have done the same have also encountered. A lot of these communities, disadvantaged communities, severely disadvantaged communities, the residents are on fixed incomes. They don't have an income. And being that everybody has a right to water, these communities, then the residents, they have failing septics, a host of issues with their septic systems that present a real public health hazard. And we know that a lot of these projects take years, sometimes from planning to, construction to completion to hook up to a sewer system. And in the meantime, they're living in these horrible conditions. One of the things that I would like to see is the possibility of some supplemental funding to, assist with whether it is septic pumping or repairs to the septic systems that these homes are in, because some of the conditions that people have to live in while these projects are going through the process are just really horrible. Thank you guys. I'm really happy to be on this advisory group.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Paul Burke.
Hello, I'm Paul Burke. For the NAACP of Ventura County, I'm the Environment and Climate Justice Chair. I want to acknowledge I'm on Chumash ancestral land here in Ventura County. My hopes are to foster better portable toilets for farm workers and other outdoor workers, who are many in California. Good septic maintenance. I was very interested to hear Mr. Cisneros speaking about that. Disease surveillance of wastewater, and research on sludge disposal to stop putting microplastics on land. I think we need to support some research on several topics like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Robert Grantham.
Good morning, Robert Grantham. I'm the general manager of the Santa Margarita Water District in Orange County. We serve a little under 250,000 people. It's a great organization, very innovative. We recycle almost 100% of our wastewater, something we're very proud of. Just way of my background, I've been in the public sector since 2017. Prior to that, I was a consultant working with, I think, about 250 agencies throughout the country. And so wastewater is my passion, what I do. And this project is really important for all of us. And we talk about the needs. It's not just urban, it's not just rural, it's all of the above. And trying to find a practical solution is important, building on what's been said. Last year, I testified to the Senate Finance and Governance Committee talking about infrastructure needs, local needs. The state board, I think Director Morgan, is $100 billion in 20 years, and that was the old number. I'm sure it's multiple of that. But how do we create a practical solution trying to plug that gap? And so I'm very pleased to be part of this and appreciate the invitation to do so. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Ryan Sinclair.
Hi, everyone. Ryan Sinclair. I'm an associate professor at Loma Linda University. I have a PhD in environmental engineering and environmental health from Tulane. And then after that, I joined here at Loma Linda around 2010. And since then, I've been working with community. I've had the autonomy here as a faculty to go out and work with community on wastewater. And I've been able to work on projects here in San Bernardino County, and then in Riverside County. I've worked a lot with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability on some of the wastewater issues going on down there with failing on-site systems, and with several nonprofits down there as well, not only Alianza, but Leadership Council and Pueblo Unido. And then also with Leadership Council in Fresno County, worked on some failing septic system projects there. And, in my academic perspective, I really wanted to call out that there's not a lot of data about health impacts. We all know that it's there from being exposed to failing septic systems, but there's still a need for a lot more of that to be explored. And it's just simply not explored because of what everybody's been saying on this call about, wastewater, something we all take for granted. So I really appreciate this advisory group and this process getting together, and seeing that the state water board is really interested in this. I've worked on, in other projects on the Salton Sea, of course, as well, and just exploring there. And then now actually coming full circle with the Salton Sea projects, because I'm looking at water quality, surface water quality, and ultimately it's the nutrients going in the Salton Sea that are then changing the components of the Salton Sea so that it releases excessive hydrogen sulfide, which is also another health indicator. So yeah, I'm really interested in on-site systems overall and the risk assessments, quantitative microbial risk assessment that can come out of that. And I'm really happy that we can get together and kind of explore solutions. So thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Ryan Smith.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ryan Smith, Assistant Director of Public Works for the City of Pleasanton.
in the East Bay. I've served in a number of jurisdictions. In 2018, I was serving with the city of Richmond, and that's when the United States Geological Survey was running what they called the haywired scenario, which really highlighted the vulnerabilities of wastewater conveyance and treatment systems, and that prompted me to apply for and enroll in a master's program in Homeland Security, where my thesis work explored the problem space of this modern day wastewater paradigm we live in. And so just fair warning, on occasion, I'll get on my soapbox a little bit about container-based sanitation or non-sewered sanitation, as an acceptable alternative to traditional wastewater systems. But that aside, delighted to be here, and it's an honor to be selected to serve with everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next advisory group member is Sean Bothwell, but he's not able to be here today. But he is represented by his alternate, Lauren Marshall.
Hi, everyone. Great to see some familiar faces and meet some new ones. I am not Sean Bothwell. As you can see, I'm his alternate, Lauren Marshall from California Coastkeeper Alliance. Sean Bothwell is our executive director, and I'm our senior staff attorney. CCK is part of the International Waterkeeper Alliance, working for swimmable, drinkable, fishable waters. So we work for swimmable, drinkable, fishable waters for all Californians, using a variety of tools, including law, science, and policy. I'm humbled to be here with everyone. It's great to see all the perspectives of various folks that are thinking about these systems as something other than just things in the ground. So thank you for having us, and looking forward to this group. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Shri Vedachalam.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shri Vedachalam. I work for a company called CIS, Core-Based Infrastructure Solutions, and I lead the advisory practice. We are a national firm. We work on a variety of projects, largely focused on climate resilience and watershed management and stormwater management. But my team works, quite a lot of projects that involve community engagement, working with environmental justice communities, and focused on a broad variety of water topics. My background relevant to this group is I did my PhD on septic system management. So this is a topic that is very interesting and near and dear to me. Just understanding, the cost structure between moving from septic system to a more centralized conveyance system, and how do we manage that transition, but also how do we make sure that people living on septic systems are able to, manage those systems in a much better way, and that maintains their health. I'm based in Washington, D.C., quite far from California, so I don't have any local perspective on how California systems work, but I'm happy to bring all of the perspectives that I have, just knowing this topic and working on this nationally. Again, very thankful for the invitation to be a part of this group, and looking forward to the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Varshini Reddy.
Varshini Reddy, and I'm currently serving as a project engineer and manager at EEC Environmental. Established in 1995 and based in Orange, EEC is a leading engineering, compliance, and environmental consulting firm. We offer a comprehensive range of services, including environmental site assessments, regulatory compliance, remediation and restoration, along with water, wastewater, and stormwater management. Recently, our work has included a special emphasis on addressing PFAS contamination, reflecting our commitment to tackling emerging environmental challenges with innovative solutions. I have over 8 years of professional experience with a background in civil and environmental engineering, specializing in both centralized and decentralized wastewater treatment systems, environmental compliance, and sustainability. I bring a unique perspective to the group, drawing from my experience in working closely with the communities in both urban and rural India, where I conducted extensive sanitation surveys and implemented the sanitation solutions. My passion lies in community engagement and developing solutions to address diverse environmental challenges. And I'm really excited to contribute my expertise and insights to our collective efforts in advancing the wastewater management practices across California. And thank you very much for this opportunity, and it's an honor to be part of such a distinguished team.
Thank you. And last, we have Wajiha Noor.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Wajiha Noor. I'm a government affairs analyst at Eastern Municipal Water District. Eastern provides water, wastewater, and recycled water services to thousands of customers in Western Riverside County. Just to give you an idea about the scope of our operation, we currently operate 2,000 miles of sewer lines. We have 51 lift stations, and we serve 270,000 EDUs. We have 4 large reclamation plants where we treat 50 million gallons of wastewater every day. All of this highly treated wastewater is beneficially reused for landscape purposes as well as agriculture and environmental needs. I also wanted to mention that 30% of our population is disadvantaged. We are really committed to affordability, and we are one of the few districts that have a billing system which kind of promotes affordability. We have a block rates system where we charge our customer according to their use of our system. I also wanted to mention that we are very well connected with our community. In the past, we have had experiences where there were septic tank failures in our communities, and through our advocacy and our partnerships with federal and state agencies, we were able to bring funding, and we have successfully started our septic to sewer projects in our communities. We also do a lot of outreach and education program in our communities. Every year we do a healthy sewer campaign, and on a lighter note, we have a award-winning mascot, Patrick the Pooh. I wanted to mention that. And so we do a lot of education, we do a lot of advocacy, and these are some of the stories I wanted to bring to this table. My background itself is in policy and data analysis and economics, and I hope to contribute all that to this group. And I do also wanted to echo the comments made by the board member Morgan here. This is remarkable, and this is truly critical. And I hope we can truly make a difference here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully we can make Patrick an honorary advisory group member. But I just want to say thank you to all the advisory group for coming to this meeting, reading all my emails and all the materials that I send. I really appreciate it. We appreciate your expertise and time that you will spend throughout the life of this project. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from all of you. I know this meeting is introductory, so in future meetings, we'll have a lot more discussion and be able to hear your perspectives, but thank you so much. Next was some meeting guidelines and establishing group agreements. First being to listen actively and not interrupt. Second, to speak briefly and allow everyone to participate, respect each other, and disagree without being disagreeable. Please prepare for each meeting. I know I send a lot of emails with a lot of materials, but I really appreciate it. To attend each meeting, and please let me know if you are unable to, and let me know in advance. And to please honor the agenda and support meeting start and end times, which I'll let everyone know that we're doing an awesome job this time round. So, but I wanted to open up the floor in case there's anything missing from these meeting guidelines that the advisory members or state board or project team would like to add. I want to make sure that we conduct these meetings in a way that is equitable and everyone is able to be heard. And also, this isn't the last time that you have to say anything, but go for it.
Is it okay if I just suggest that everybody who speaks kind of identifies themselves first, you know, their name, title, basically, so we could just know who's talking? That's all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sometimes I tend to speak Spanglish. Spanish and English. So we do have an interpreter if I say words that might be in Spanish.
We can see about having an interpreter. Danya shaking her head yes at me, so that seems like it could happen. And I know we have some Spanish speakers on the team who can also help out.
Yeah, I can write some of those in the chat, so don't worry.
I can interpret myself too, but I just was wondering if it's an automatic thing or. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, Sam mentioned that he can put in the chat as well. So thank you for offering, Sam. If that is all, and of course, if there are other meeting agreements, guidelines that you would like to add, please feel free to email me, and we could address those at the next meeting. And this is Ariana speaking, sorry. Ariana Hernandez, project manager for UCLA. But I think next we will throw it over to Danya.
So hello again. I am Dania Jimerson, and I am a senior engineer with the State Water Resources Control Board. And I'm using this simplified version of the State Water Board organization chart because I would like to emphasize that the project's overarching goal of supporting the Water Board's vision of clean, safe, and affordable water for all uses in California by identifying sanitation and wastewater compliance problems. And this is a key task in achieving this goal is basically gathering data on at-risk wastewater sanitation systems impacting water quality or drinking water supplies. So this data gathering is only possible with the coordination and collaboration of with various divisions and the regional boards. In January and February of this year, we met with each one of the regional boards. As you can see in this map here, their regional distribution throughout the state. And we discussed the program's goals and the specifics of the data request, particularly for permitting and compliance and enforcement aspects of various types of permits, and also the septic to sewer projects that 5 of the regional boards are actually managing. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all my colleagues from the regional boards, the Division of Financial Assistance, the Division of Drinking Water, and the Division of Water Quality for their collaboration and help during this initial data gathering phase. And some of the specific programs that we have been working with are did I go too fast? Yes. The Division of Water Quality, specifically the WDR and MPS. So almost 40% of the data gathered so far pertains to wastewater treatment facilities that are permitted through waste discharge requirements, or WDRs for short, and 10% through MPDS permits or National Pollution Discharge Elimination Systems. So coordination with these respective technical experts managing these facilities has been crucial for this initial phase. So another, the wastewater needs assessment was developed and is being coordinated within the groundwater section, where Stephanie, Laurel, and I are located within the Division of Water Quality. So under, of course, the direct supervision of Scott Couch and Annalisa Kihara, which they are here today as well. Thank you. And another important division, of course, is the Division of Drinking Water, and we have had close coordination with them, especially with the Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience Program, or SAFER for short, and SAFER efforts to improve drinking water availability to disadvantaged communities, which went through a similar process with the Drinking Water Needs Assessment from 2019 to 2021, have been particularly relevant to this effort as well. and many communities that SAFER has been worked over the past 5 years, they of course also are in tremendous need of sanitation services. Also, coordination with the Division of Financial Assistance is crucial for program goals, particularly in identifying systems needing investment in disadvantaged and vulnerable communities. So access to the list of current and completed projects and their funding allocations will help tremendously by understanding all the costs included in capital improvement and septic to sewer projects, excluding those projects that have already been funded from the statewide cost and funding gap estimate. And of course, including unfunded projects where those applications were rejected or withdrawn from the fundable list. And finally, I would like to kind of walk you through some of the state water board solutions and initiatives, and State Board Member Nicole Morgan alluded to some of these. Some of the key initiatives adopted by the state water boards that provide you with a little bit of context or to where we are now with the wastewater needs assessment starts with in 2016 with the by identifying the human right to water as a top priority and core value of the water boards. And then follow by the drinking water needs assessment, which I mentioned began in 2019 and was completed in 2021 to advance the goals of the human right to water. And so in the same year, in 2021, when the drinking water needs assessment was completed, the racial equity resolution was adopted, reaffirming the water board's commitment to protecting public health in communities disproportionately burdened by environmental contamination. And finally, that leads to today, 2022, when UCLA entered into a contract with the State Water Board to support a state water effort to conduct this wastewater needs assessment. Thank you.
All right, so this is Greg Pierce from UCLA again. Now I'm going to be walking through briefly, along with Maureen and Sam Sandoval, a little bit of a project overview and a tiny bit of where we've gotten to date on the project since we are a year in. But we wanted to start with Danya giving an overview of where this project sits sort of within the board and within the board process on the human right to water. I know there's a lot of names of different units and people in this meeting today, but we kind of want to start from the beginning and not assume that everyone's been able to interpret where this project sits and previous actions. Of course, we want to start with what is the goal of the wastewater needs assessment? And I'd say, well, the goal is actually multiple. It's first to develop a framework, because a framework really didn't exist. Again, California hasn't conducted a wastewater needs assessment. To our knowledge, no other state has conducted a wastewater needs assessment exactly like this or similar to this. But it includes developing a framework and then acting on that framework, including identification and compilation of existing data, which is quite complicated on this project, as you'll hear more about today and in future meetings. Then, of course, analysis of that data, all for the overarching goal of helping address sanitation deficiencies that inhibit the Water Board's vision of clean, safe, and affordable water, both for human uses and environmental resource protection. This project does have a particular focus on disadvantaged communities and decentralized systems, although it doesn't have an exclusive focus on those communities and systems. And this, again, overall, as board member Morgan and others have said, really supports the part of the human right to water language that was enshrined in Assembly Bill 685 back in 2012 around access to water-related sanitation services as part of the human right to water in California. If I only had one slide to describe what the needs assessment is, I'd use this one. Fortunately or unfortunately for you, we have more slides, but this is, if you have to distill the sort of analysis approach to the needs assessment, it looks like this. Some of you may be quite familiar with this slide because it's actually borrowed from the state board's drinking water needs assessment, which again was, that process started in 2019. UCLA, Office of Water Programs, and others who are on the current team worked on that first drinking water needs assessment. And in many ways, our approach is modeled after the drinking water needs assessment, but with caveats that the model doesn't work perfectly, and we have to adjust that model quite extensively as we go. But essentially, the needs assessment approach looks first and foremost at assessing which systems and communities served by systems are inadequate or out of compliance or at risk of being inadequate or out of compliance through analysis of data, both qualitative and quantitative, then identifying at a high level, because the approach is statewide, and we're talking about, I believe as board member Morgan mentioned, at least 3,000 systems, regulated systems, and then a lot of other individual sewage systems, as we'll talk about in just a second. Identifying solutions for those systems that are inadequate and at risk of being inadequate, modeled solutions and the cost of those solutions at a high level, statewide. And then last but not least, essentially how to pay the cost of addressing the problems that are identified through, again, the risk assessment. Both what funds are available at the state, at the federal level, what funds might need to be available to pay for more of the needs identified, as well as sort of community ability to pay and willingness to pay for part of these infrastructure and other upgrades. But that's, again, the highest level overview of the needs assessment in one slide. And now we're going to move a little bit into the project and a more detailed outline of what we've been up to, what we're up to in the near term, and then what we're up to over the 4-year project. Again, the project is 4 years. It started in July 2023. It runs then through to June 2027. There's 2 phases of the project. So we're in phase 1, which runs through July 2023 through June 2025. And give you both an overview of all 4 years, and especially of the 2 years we're in the middle of, and then especially a little bit about what we've done over the last year. And then we'll really dive into that in the next meeting. But first, one of the main objectives of phase 1 that carries through phase 2 is to engage the public and collaborate with partners. This advisory group is a big part of that. Even though an advisory group was not spelled out in the sort of the contract, we thought it, no pun intended, advisable to do so. And I think both the interest we got from the public application and then what you all shared today absolutely confirms how essential that is. And then other aspects or objectives of phase 1 include identifying hotspots of sanitation issues in communities of concern. A lot of that's really done through the survey that you'll hear about from San Sandoval, both in this meeting and the next meeting, to identify data gaps and possible solutions at a high level that Office of Water Programs is leading, and you'll hear about again a little bit in this meeting and a lot about in the next meeting. Identifying disadvantaged and severely disadvantaged communities subject to sewer access needs, which UCLA is leading part of, but also our other partners. Identifying really throughout the project the broad challenges of sanitation needs, especially for non-traditional communities, tribal sovereignties, and the both present and future climate change impacts on communities and systems. And then what we're really diving into in this coming year is defining and developing the criteria for inadequate and at-risk systems. I'll have a slide on that later, but we'll have a lot of discussion of that, I think, heading into fall, but especially probably winter. And then defining and developing criteria for the technical solutions to address those systems, again, deemed as inadequate, and model the costs of realizing those solutions. This is just a different way of sort of showing the timeline for that work that I just talked through. Again, we're at the start of year 2 of the project. So I think we can go ahead and move to the next slide, which gives another view on what we've been up to. And I don't want to repeat myself too much, but we completed a work plan. We're going to be able to share the results of our rapid baseline assessment, including the survey, but also a review of existing data and published reports outside of the purview of the wastewater needs assessment that we're building upon the foundation. We don't want to act like nothing's been done before. Identifying data gaps, which we're sort of midstream on. I believe we have 6 more months in terms of the official period of identifying data gaps. And then again, officially, we're just starting on the risk assessment criteria, although we've been working for some time on that, given how novel that aspect is. Really just starting work on the solution and cost criteria. Of course, we formed an advisory group, and you're all here. And we've also started, particularly University of Massachusetts Amherst has started on their work, which is pretty distinct, and drawing on work they've done in other states successfully several times to model on-site wastewater treatment system location using also grounded data from California. You'll, again, hear more about that in future meetings. In addition to work that partners have been doing and assisting us with that falls under the SSO general order sort of realm of things in terms of mapping shapefiles for collection systems, which is a broader process at the water boards. So now I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to, again, our partners at UC-A&R, Sam Sandoval, to tell you a little bit about the baseline survey.
Gracias, Greg. Thanks, Greg. Once again, Samuel Sandoval, professor at UC Davis. And I'm going to talk about the baseline survey. So Greg mentioned in his second line item, it was identify hotspots of sanitation issues and community of concerns. And that basically we're doing it with this rapid baseline assessment. As mentioned by others, Paul Burke and Oscar Cisneros. So there are communities that they have seen that they are having issues related with sanitation. So we developed a survey. It's been a year since we developed the survey. First, we develop internally, and then we request some feedback from partners that are also in this group, CASA and CWC. So the survey, basically the objective of the survey is an initial effort to gather information on water-related sanitation issues. Sanitation needs focus on household and community experiences. And this is also something that Greg mentioned. We are focusing on these household community experiences, disadvantaged communities. So we developed the survey, we refine it. Something very important, the survey is in English and Spanish. So that was a huge effort we developed there. We've been we request the feedback from different experts. So we reach around 166 experts. We have a 66% response rate. What that means is that we have a good response rate. We're in the process of analyzing the survey. We will, okay, so I'm just looking at also the chat. Basically, that's what we did. The survey includes the definitions of water-related sanitation. So sorry, we are a tiny bit of academics, or we want to define what we are asking. So that was those definitions, water sanitation equity, and some of the issues that we ask in the survey. We are doing at this moment the analysis of the survey. We will plan also to do a field campaign, and basically that will be to put the faces and the stories behind the data. It's been amazing the response of the people, of the experts that they are willing to share, like Oscar Cisneros and others did on what does it look like to have these issues in the ground. And anyway, so that's where we are. More to come. This might be what I just give you is the trailer of the meeting number 2 of what we'll be presenting. And the same, I'm very honored to be on this group and to share the work that we're doing for the better of California. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. And the work of the survey is really, I mean, it's multiple fold, but first and foremost, to make sure we know what we don't know and understand where there's communities that aren't identified by other data collection systems, or in sort of regulatory awareness, but also just really to dive deep qualitatively and understand the depth and breadth of sanitation needs across the state and help inform the entire project and many other aspects of the project, which are primarily quantitative. Next, I want to say a little bit about our work on, to use an academic term, defining our units of analysis for the project. I'm going to pass it over to Maureen for the next slide, but just want to say a little bit about sort of what are the primary system types and terminology we're using on the project. Want to start with saying that defining system types for the study was and is complicated. On the drinking water needs assessment side, it was much simpler, and it's much simpler kind of all the way from the federal level down, from the Safe Drinking Water Act down to how the state defines community water systems as a subset of public water systems, and then you have domestic wells. You do have state smalls in between, but that's a tangent. On the wastewater side, it's not as codified, and there's not sort of as many working standards in code or board practice, or frankly, of course, general public understanding of what different wastewater system types are and processes. So we are using and proposing to use the following terms for different types of systems. The first being collection systems. I think what a lot of folks would think of as wastewater utilities or sewer systems, but systems that are covered under the sanitary sewer general order permit, and they do relate to a specific type of permit that these systems need to have at the state level. The next bin of systems is treatment systems, which we functionally, after a lot of discussion, I think we need, and discovery, I think we need to treat as two different system types in the risk assessment, differentiating by those NPDES or National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits. A lot of these are your classic wastewater treatment facilities or wastewater treatment plants, as well as waste discharge requirement permits, those that discharge waste to land, which come in all shapes and sizes, let's say, and there are many of, and some of them have overlap, as Maureen will talk about, with NPDES and SSO permits. But those are the sort of the three major regulated system types or permit types that we'll be analyzing in risk and solution and cost analysis. And then our third major category is what we're calling individual sewage systems, which we recognize is not a term that is commonly known, but is intended to rectify many other terms that are used, including colloquially septic systems, but in the regulatory language, on-site wastewater treatment systems. There are also on-site sewage treatment systems. We're trying to create an umbrella term because part of the goal of this project is to use sort of language that is publicly accessible for these types of systems. And we recognize some of these systems also, some of them do have WDR permits. We'll explore all of that complexity and talk it through in future meetings. But for now, we're calling the systems individual sewage systems. As board member Morgan mentioned, there are hundreds of thousands, really millions of these systems across the state. As such, we're not able to assess on an individual level the actual performance of these systems one-to-one as inadequate or at risk. Just like, again, on the drinking water needs assessment, actual individual wells are not assessed. There's ambient groundwater quality that's overlaid with wells. But we will be developing a prioritization scheme for individual sewage systems and areas of individual sewage systems that will help inform solutions, particularly around, again, what's colloquially known as septic to sewer solutions. I think with that, I will now pass it over to Maureen to talk about all of the work that Office of Water Programs has been doing to make this possible.
Not quite all of the work, but.
Well, yes.
Hello again, Maureen Kerner, Office of Water Programs at Sac State. So we have been focused in the last year on the data gaps piece. And it turns out as representative of our 30 advisory group members and all the folks in this room and others online, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things related to sanitation and wastewater throughout the state. And go figure, people do it in different ways. And so what we're seeing is a lot of, let's say, irregularities in the data. Our focus so far has been on the state's repository for primarily the permitted facilities. So like Greg said, the NPDES, the WDRs, the SSO permits, and then if there's any on-site wastewater treatment system, WDR permits as well. We've been collaborating with the regional boards. Again, thank you to the regional boards and the state board members and state board staff for their collaboration. They've been super responsive and helpful. And what we're seeing is just some inaccuracies and inconsistencies. And so in this great data set repository, there's some maybe more simple challenges. An example would be a facility that's located in Santa Barbara County is listed as being in the San Bernardino Regional Water Board. And so if you look at the column or the field name is region, and it's part of this, self-reporting, putting your own information in and not being really clear what's required in those kinds of fields. So sorting that out. Something that's been a little more complicated is when you think of a community that is being served in multiple ways, say through a collection system and a treatment plant, that when we're looking at the data and the way it's organized, there's not a way to connect the collection system with the wastewater treatment plant. And so we're having students pull permits and going through them one by one to make those kind of community service type master lists. We've also been working with Division of Financial Assistance to look at their loans and grants data to understand solutions that have been done for the many different wastewater needs in the past, as well as the cost associated with that. And so when you're looking at permits and facilities, there's not a clear way how to connect the solutions and the costs from their DFA database, because the entities are not the applicant for the funding is not a facility, it's actually the community. And that, so sorting through a lot of those kind of inconsistencies in that, and we'll have more to tell you in another few months.
All right, thanks, Maureen. And I want to give a flag to the advisory group members. We had up till 11:45 for the presentation, but we're going to end that early. I only have a few more slides. So, the last segment of the meeting up till 12:30 will be for your questions and comments. So hope you all are thinking of those. But, so far we've talked really about year one and year two of the project. We want to give you a brief sense of what you have to look forward to, what we all have to look forward to. And that starts, or an overview of sort of phase two of the project, which will start a year from now and run through June 2027. I mean, there's a lot of words here, but really it's around implementing the methods that we identify in phase one with the data that we identify in phase one, and producing deliverables that are useful to the water boards, to communities, and to the public. That includes filling in as many data gaps as we can and publishing lists of systems of concern or lists of inadequate And at-risk systems, again, as was done on the drinking water needs assessment side and is now done annually, as well as the development of mapping tools, including the regulated systems, sewer utility boundaries, to the extent possible, and the OTS modeling tool that both feed into analysis, particularly around solutions, but also live on their own as products that are useful to the broader community for analysis and assessment. Then really the core of the work and what we're driving toward, again, is results at a system level around inadequacy and risk, including the detailed methodology and sort of scoring for inadequate and at-risk systems. And then again, we're not doing all of this just to identify problems. We're gearing towards solutions. That is the aim of this effort. So identifying, again, at a high level, solutions for systems of concern. These will be modeled solutions. These will not replace the need for preliminary engineering reports. Again, similar methods as used on the drinking water needs assessment side. But then sort of last but not least, in terms of the analysis, identifying which funds, both state and federal, perhaps other, can go toward meeting solutions, as well as a likely, or I would say nearly inevitable, funding gap in terms of existing resources, and then identifying, in the absence of other funds, the impact if the solutions were implemented on local communities and ratepayers, as it were. Then last but not least, because this project is 4 years, it ends in June 2027, we will identify and publish, the board will publish a roadmap for ongoing water board wastewater needs assessment effort. Again, someone on the advisory group mentioned it. On the drinking water side, the drinking water needs assessment was and is supported by the SAFER Fund and the SAFER unit. There is no equivalent at this point for the wastewater needs assessment effort. And it's an open question, the answer to which will evolve over time around the likelihood of something similar or not. And but it is the intention of the water board for this, not to be a one-off, and to continue the effort, the spirit and implementation of the effort over time past 2027. Again, just all to say what exactly that looks like, we don't know. And I think will partly be determined by this effort, as well as other factors, such as the state budget, which I'm sure all of you know changes year to year. But yes, this project will identify a roadmap for implementation beyond June 2027. And this is what I just said sort of looks like in mapped out month by month. But we will, again, sequentially sort of be able to share results of risk analysis first, and then model solution analysis, and then sort of funding availability and gap analysis over time, and culminating in a final report that also looks forward. That brings me, I think, to our last slide before we open up for discussion from the advisory group and Q&A, which is just to mention immediate next steps, that we're having advisory group meetings quarterly. Our next meeting, I don't have the exact date in front of me, but it will be remote only. And our plan as of now is to really dive into the, in the terminology of the contract, phase 1B, but the survey that Sam talked a little bit about already, as well as some other assessment of baseline or of analysis that have already been done, and efforts that are complementary to the wastewater needs assessment, led by UC-ANR and UCLA. And then we will get into more detail around data collection progress and needs in a discussion led by the Office of Water Programs. But that's next meeting. So now we want to open the floor really to the advisory group for discussion and questions. We are going to open the floor. I know there's 30 of you. So we're just going to take questions and comments as they come. We do really ask that you direct your questions and discussion sort of to what we presented today in high level comments and questions on the project. If you want to ask detailed questions about particular aspects, we can try to answer those. Some of those we may say we need to get back to you. Some of those we don't have the answer to yet because we're doing a first time analysis. But with that, I think I want to go ahead and just open the floor and see what questions, comments we have. And do feel free to also say to, respond to each other, not just to us. And again, I'd echo what Keith said in terms of please introduce yourself again briefly so everyone knows who's talking. And I do see a physical hand raised in. We'll go ahead. We're also going to, of course, we're trying to manage, what is the term? Folks in person and folks online. So we're going to have to queue questions. But I see your hand raised, Robert. So go ahead.
Thanks, Greg. Rob Grantham, Santa Margarita Water District. I just acknowledge that, this is great work and the difficulty in what you're trying to do. I received a note and said, and I would not have caught this, but struggling, as you said, individual sewage systems, trying to get an umbrella phrase, and then the need to tie it back to California law. And so those are the kind of challenges that we'll have as we go through it. But I appreciate what you're trying to do with the umbrella and trying to ultimately take it back to California law. So it's a good commentary of this is not the easiest process ever. So anyway, just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like Keith, you have your hand raised online.
Yeah, this is Keith Freitas, and it's got a simple question. I just want to make sure, Ryan, that is there any part of this program that may overlap or be redundant compared to what's under the SGMA laws now? Aren't we can we enjoin any of these actions that we're doing, or any of this data points, or any of these gaps, or any of this work that we do with this group? Can that be enjoined to under the SGMA umbrella?
Yeah, well, that's the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, correct? I think I know that, but I want to. I think the answer, which is also it's a state process that both the Department of Water Resources, state agency, and the California State Water Board are involved in around sustainably managing our groundwater resources, particularly in groundwater basins that are not adjudicated or managed by legal settlement. I'll let someone else weigh in if they want to get more of a blurb on SGMA. But I think the answer is yes, there could be some overlap, certainly where wastewater compliance and sanitation needs interact with groundwater, and where groundwater may be polluted by inadequate sanitation systems. But I'm not sure we envision a strong overlap or tie in terms of programmatic operations or regulation with SGMA per se. I don't know if there's other folks around the room here who want to weigh in that there is a stronger tie. I think certainly, again, with SAFER, which and any coordination that we can do with existing state processes, we will do. But with SGMA, the tie is a little bit looser, but it certainly is potentially there. Do you have a direct response to that, Jesus?
Two kind of comments. As far as my feeling and my experience, and with people that I talk to, Keith uses the word overlapped, and I think it does. In a sense, I don't know all the scientific part of it, but I just know the simple part of it, that it does, and it's a concern. The other thing was I actually, and thank you, Keith, for your question about that. Everybody that's on this advisory, certain people that interest me and what I understand, I put a little X. He happens to be one on the page that I'm on. And so how do I contact other members of this advisory? Because I'm looking through this thing and I don't see any contacts. So I'm thinking I go to Ariana and Ariana, I need to contact this person, or how would I do that? Because, this is a 4-year deal, but in the meantime, we're going to have meetings every quarterly. I like to think in the meantime, though, what are we doing in collaboration or networking, or just, getting information from other members, because a lot of you have a whole lot of expertise than where I come from. Like I said, I'm just a simple person down here. all these degrees. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So you can definitely contact me. There's also the listserv if you have just like general questions for any advisory group member that I shared earlier and can share again. However, if you would like to have all the contact information for the advisory group members, and if that sounds good to everyone to share that out, I can update the welcome packet that you received via email, so that you'll have the email plus the little photograph so you can connect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can do that after the meeting.
Like I mentioned too, that, I'm pretty simple. That means I'm not one of these technical whizzes. I barely make it through and I'm a senior, so I also represent that population that doesn't have a voice at times, especially when it comes to technology, right? And so getting on Zoom and things like this, it could get pretty complicated for me, and I know a little bit. So in that aspect too, we're like assistance with that. I'm not saying that I want special assistance or any of that, say, but when it comes to getting on there, so it's kind of like simple for me just to call somebody and talk to them. I'm old school, I'll be texting. I'm one finger text kind of guy, so just that, if so is my concern of just being able to talk to somebody in person that way. So
yeah, me and you can talk more offline about
Okay.
that, and I'll send it via email. But
Okay.
me and you can talk like via phone call. So to make sure that you're able to contact advisory group members in a way that's best for you.
Thank you.
But yeah, we can definitely do that.
I think we have some questions now online. Or Maureen, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I wondered if I can just weigh in on Keith's question a little bit. So Maureen Kerner, Office of Water Programs. Keith, we're we talked about kind of 3 different types of systems: collection systems, treatment facilities, and then these individual systems. And so OWP is looking at not, a formal risk or failure for individual systems, but more of a kind of prioritization of if the water board would decide and there would funding and there's a need of, which ones should be at the top of the list. And so certainly groundwater impacts and what's being done under stigma would be included in that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I just want to thank the gentleman that's talking. Nobody is too old, and nobody asks dumb questions. You ask any question you have, and I think you're making a grand contribution to this group. I don't see that any kind of credentials are required to be a part of this advisory group myself, and I appreciate the state and UCLA for allowing such a broad and diverse group to participate. I also wanted to just say, make sure that I'm on the same page, Ryan, of the Brown Act, and as we aren't going to violate any Brown Act laws here with communicating with individual members that are not a quorum. Do we have to worry about quorums and communicating on an individual or quorum basis? That's it for me.
Yeah, next we have Ryan Smith, who's online.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I might have missed it when you were talking about general expectations. I'm just curious what the next 2 months look like for the advisory boards. Are there going to be documents distributed to review so we can prepare for the next meeting in September?
Yeah, in September, we'll go over this baseline assessment of existing wastewater sources, as well as the survey that Sam had talked about, and the efforts of OWP and data gaps and analysis. And I will be sending those materials. So if you have any questions, of course, feel free to email me. This is Ariana Hernandez speaking from UCLA. But yeah, we'll provide all the materials prior to the meetings for you to review.
Okay, thanks.
I would say also, I mean, we're trying to balance, we're not asking, we can't ask for a lot of work in between meetings. So we will be providing materials, asking you to review materials, but we won't, be asking for a lot of your valuable time in between meetings, given the nature of this advisory group. So there's kind of a balance we're trying to strike there. But that being said, we will be providing materials and expecting, hoping that people can come into the meetings having reviewed those materials.
Great, thank you.
I think next we have Ryan Sinclair.
Greg, there's a question over on the end from Debbie. Okay.
Yeah, let's go to Ryan and then we'll put you in the queue.
Oh, yeah, I actually I took my hand down, but I'll ask my question anyway. I put it in the comments. It was just yeah, you had the three different kinds of treatment systems, and I just had a general comment. I thought that a lot of the health, I mean, the risk assessment, I'm assuming it's a health risk assessment, is most of the health issues I believe are going to come from the third one, the individual sewage system. So it's just interesting to see how we decide to define that. And, a lot of those aren't permitted, but some of them might be really like ad hoc, worst possible scenario, open, straight pipe sort of deal. But then some of them might be kind of new, innovative solutions that are actually working really well. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to that. That looks technically piqued my interest a little, I guess. And my other question was about identifying wastewater systems across the state. I know that there was a bill or something that came down maybe about 10 or 5 years ago that required counties to map out all of their sewer systems or on-site sanitation. And I know that because I worked with Leadership Council in Fresno County, and I was just wondering, maybe this is too granular for this meeting, but are we going to be able to get into like that actual data set? And is it going to be available for us to see like which counties in California actually have good maps of their on-site systems?
Maureen Kerner, Office of Water Programs. Yeah, Ryan, we're looking into that. We have just at the beginning, we've been just kind of looking online at county websites to understand what they have. And the next step will be to reach out to the counties individually and have that conversation and pull it together. So underway, just getting started.
Yeah, I know Fresno County had something that they came up with, which is good, but I don't know of any others actually. So,
okay.
All right. Yeah, and thank you for your comments and questions. I think next we're going to go to Paul online.
Thanks. I'm Paul Burke from NAACP of Ventura County. I have a couple of questions. First, about the data collection. I'm guessing and hoping, but you didn't mention it, that you'll be collecting data on leaks from collection systems, which would include both sudden leaks and chronic leaks, and also permit violations on disposal, which would include both the effluent disposal and the sludge disposal. And so in your three categories, I'm guessing and hoping that the sludge disposal is covered under your treatment category. It's not really treatment, and it may need its own consideration in the framework. It's a huge issue. And the individual sewage systems could include the portable toilet companies that serve festivals, farm workers, the film industry, etc. The sewage eventually goes into a wastewater treatment plant, but there are huge issues before it gets there, where the farm worker or the construction worker or whatever uses a portable toilet. And that brings to mind that there are areas like on sludge disposal and portable toilets where the state may need better regulations. And that would seem to me an important part of wastewater planning, to see where there are better regulatory discussed. And I wonder where that would fit in the plan.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I think I'll say briefly, we've discussed all of those things. Those comments are all right on track with what we're trying to do. I think most of them we are in the process of identifying or already identified data sources that allow us to. Some are more tricky, and we'll have to wait for a future meeting to get into details about what's possible and what's not on the data side. But we're taking notes here, of course, and we can respond directly. And again, all of your comments are directly on point with what we're trying to do and what we are doing. But there are some limitations on the data side that may, not make some things that we would like to measure seemingly not feasible in this initial assessment period. And we are going to have to identify some data gaps that we won't actually be able to fill in the initial period. But of course, we're trying to limit those as much as possible. But again, all your comments on point, and certainly things we're discussing and working on. Thank you.
Will we consider needed changes in regulations and laws?
Oh, yes, certainly there will be. Yes. Maureen, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, Greg, that might be part of the roadmap that you did that we do at the very end.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think next we're just trying to go in the order of in which questions were received. We have Minu.
Yes, thank you, Paul. I have a question for you and perhaps the board. And this is getting a little bit more granular than I think Ryan's question was perhaps for regulations and for planning. And these are different definitions. Perhaps there should be a different definition for risk and safety. So there's risk, that's the health risk, and then there's safety, which is aligned along the lines of failure and aging. And since you went granular and you defined the categories, I think especially in category 3, defining risk and safety and perhaps separating them for future regulations and planning and even costs. I think that might be important for the committee to do, and for everyone to have a clear definition of how you would define risk and safe systems.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. And I would say certainly we will be diving more into the terminology and what is meant by risk. And the other term we're using is inadequate systems, but certainly open to discussing further the safety term and hearing more on that. I guess maybe if you could just say again, and we can take back and think about a more full response, how you're defining safety or operationalizing safety.
Right. So the safety would be more on the operational end, right? With California in specific, it would be the aging systems, systems that are failing. So regulatory wise, as you mentioned, like NPDES and the permitting, so forth, they would be different regulations, right? And then there's regulations, different regulations for health. that would come in from wastewater. So I think defining those and differentiating them is going to be important for future planning as well. And that's where I was going, where in my mind, when you said safety and you mentioned that in all the three categories, it was more for the engineering and the structural aspect of the wastewater systems as opposed to the health risks.
Okay, thank you. And I think, yeah, certainly within the sort of the current terms, inadequacy and risk, there will be subcategories and then individual factors used to assess or score systems. But I think what you're describing, we envision and we think we can make, we can actualize or operationalize the safety aspect you're describing. But again, these terms are not sort of codified on the wastewater side and in a wastewater needs assessment like this. So we've had a lot of discussion. We want to hear from you all. That's why you're here on these terms. And yeah, we appreciate hearing from you. I'm not sure in a circumstance like this, well, I would say I am sure that not everyone is going to agree on the final terms used because there's different terms used and not consensus, but we will try as much as possible to sort of accommodate the ways that different folks conceive of these things and use terms. And again, well, also we have to, we have to maintain consistency with and still work within the terms that are used in codes, regulation and permitting. We're not supplanting those terms. So it's a challenge, but yes, we appreciate your comments, and so the commentary on safety, I think, is going to be addressed.
Great, thank you.
Next, I think we can go back to Debbie Mackey, who's in the room.
Thank you, Debbie Mackey. Manu, I think you really asked one of my major questions is if we had working definitions or what a failing system was or a risk system would be. And so it sounds like we're going to be working on that from what I heard your responses at. I mean, I'm seeing some head nods, but and then just another clarification on that, and then one more comment is, will those terms vary depending upon the type of systems that they are? Are we looking for multiple? Are we looking at one single term, or are we looking at probably a variety of terms?
Yeah, I think yes to the first part. Certainly, again, we'll be diving into the details of what is meant and what should be meant by, again, we're trying to use the terminology inadequate systems and at risk of inadequate. And those terms would be used across the three, again, collection treatment systems and treatment systems, but two different types of treatment systems with some overlapping individual factors, but also some differentiation. So there is I think maybe that answers your second question, that we envision using those terms across the different system types, but they'll be defined, or I hate to use the word I keep using, operationalized differently with different data points. I would say that's essential to at least maintain some consistency, as much consistency in terminology as we can, to make the outcome of this effort understandable to the general public, but just to the broader community, while also, again, maintaining consistency with permitting and regulatory language. That's a strong emphasis of this project, is kind of broadening understanding of these topics, again, in the general public, to the extent that the general public is interested. And we are also trying to maintain some consistency, although we've also already made an alteration from what's the terminology used in the drinking water needs assessment which labels some community water systems as failing, and then uses, again, the at-risk label with not just at risk, but some systems are scored as at risk, potentially at risk, and then not at risk, I believe. So we are trying to straddle all of these things. Again, we welcome your input, but that's an initial answer, I think, on your questions.
And we'll have more discussion. But okay, on the second part of it, there's just kind of, this is as we're dealing with individual septics and other issues, are you working with the different LAMP programs? And I'm not sure, I think it's local agency management. I'm looking at management program. Is that it? Oh, good. I got it. Okay, great. Which I was wondering if you were working with them.
Yeah, that's Maureen Kerner. Yes, that's going to be part of the county outreach piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think now we just have, unless there are other, okay, we have other questions.
Sorry,
could you introduce yourself again?
Yes, sure. Wajiha Noor from Eastern Municipal Water District. Just while we are discussing slide number 26 and discussing the terms and terminologies, I've just had a suggestion that if we can have in the materials a detailed description of these and a rationale to why we are using or categorizing them. So when we come to the next meeting, we can can do our homework and study these better. For some of us, these things might be new. So just a suggestion. And the other thing I wanted to ask is if there is any way or shape or form our organizations can help you in terms of data collection, if you need any help there.
Yeah, so to the first, yes, absolutely. Whether it's the next meeting, I'm not sure, because we have a lot and we do have some time to get through all of this. But yes, absolutely. These terms, I don't want to say all of these terms are new, but we're trying to create a new sort of unified set of terminology for this specific effort. So we certainly will be sharing all the details we can. And there are a lot of details about how we've come to initial terminology and how we will refine that over time. To the second question, I think, or comment, I don't have an immediate response. Certainly, we could see ways that particular agencies could be helpful in this effort. We've already had involvement from agency associations have been quite helpful in providing data or pointing us to reports, et cetera. But right now, I guess beyond your participation in the advisory group, we don't have any specific requests, although if Maureen, you want to say anything, certainly can weigh in on the data front.
I had a really good response. So we'd be interested. I think I go back to the contract, and what we were tasked with doing is using mainly publicly available and easily accessible data. So we're trying to think of that framework that could be done easily and make it a repeatable process in the future. And so we didn't really intend to go working with all these different individual agencies to pull whatever data they have, but we'll keep it in mind as thank you for the offer as we continue to move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate your response.
Greg, I want to mention that we have 4 questions on the chat. I think the first one has been responded, like, has there been thoughts on imposing a statewide regulation for wastewater systems? I think it was previously responded. There is Kelly Broom from Environmental Stakeholder and Advocate. Systems are aging and a lot of group members were concerned about nitrogen levels. Is there a reason phosphorus levels are not as important? They both drive harmful algae blooms, HABs, and internal loading. Will systems similar to using plant roots, aerobic tank surfaces, and microbes be reviewed as potential solutions in order to reduce contaminants back into the environment rather than chemicals which could further drive HABs? So that is one question, Kelly.
Yeah, so we're going to get to those questions if we have time, but we're prioritizing advisory group input first. Otherwise, we'll take those questions and answer them as we can. at a later time, but it's a good question, but we'll get to that if we can. But first we want to prioritize existing advisory group comments or questions. And I know Carlos has his hand raised, but there might have also, I'll go to Carlos, and then if there were other hands raised here, we can go back in the room. Carlos?
Yes, wonderful. Hi everyone. Wow, y'all got your work laid out. It's a lot that you're embarking on, and just kudos to the entire team for that. When you get into the data collection and assessing data points, are there also qualitative data or from the surveys? I know that I'm not sure if I heard that there was going to be any qualitative data being gathered from that. So that's one question, if it is or not, and / turning that into a comment, that we could benefit a lot from having some of those stories being shared and those concerns. And then two, I know UCLA, y'all came out with recently with the Making the Most of Landmark Recycled Water Investments in Los Angeles report. And, connected in any way to the work of this effort. And are there other reports throughout the state that are being looked at and integrated into this assessment?
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I can answer the first question, or sorry, the second question first. Certainly the report that the Luskin Center came out with on recycled water in Los Angeles has no formal relationship to this effort whatsoever, or an even informal relationship. There, of course, is a intertie with recycled water efforts and wastewater systems, collection and treatment. And we are aware of that. That's not a large focus of this effort, but of course there is some intersection that will come into play. But again, there's not a large intersection, and the other Luskin Center report is not tied to this project. In terms of qualitative data and qualitative assessment, the survey and follow-up from the survey that UCA&R are leading is the primary sort of instrument for that on the front end. Of course, the advisory group is also a key component of qualitative assessment and input on the project. I'm happy to turn it back over to Sam Sandoval if you want to elaborate any more on sort of qualitative assessment under the survey and follow-up process. I will say more broadly, a large part of the project is quantitative and is statewide. And this project does take as a model, again, with a lot of caveats, the drinking water needs assessment model, rather than some other types of needs assessment approaches, which are equally valid and important, that are more qualitative in nature, and that we and other colleagues on this project have been involved in. But I'll turn it back over to Sam to say a little bit more on the survey and interviews.
And thanks, Greg. I think the survey it is qualitative, also quantitative, and I think it's the counterpart of the pure data analysis. So it is bringing the stories, the faces, the voices of the people that are actually experiencing these issues to the front. I think that is extremely important. I think it really adds to the quantitative data analysis. For me, that is extremely important. Later, it will be also a field campaign where we will be collecting all this information and seeing the pictures, the faces, because a lot of the things that we are talking about here is what you and others have seen, which is issues on our communities that they do not have access to, or that they have inadequate wastewater systems. More to come next meeting. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both.
All right. So I do want to briefly, before we go to other questions or comments, reply to one question that wasn't answered previously. And just note, I'm going to read the language so that I get it correct. Regarding Brown Act and Bagley-Keene, essentially this advisory group, the Wastewater Needs Assessment Advisory Group, is not subject to Bagley-Keene, so thus you can freely talk amongst yourselves. Also, the Brown Act is for local government, and so none of the Brown Act provisions apply here. So I think we can elaborate if you need us to, but I think generally you are free to communicate amongst yourselves, including around this project. Were there, Jared Voskuhl.
Hi, Jared with CASA. I really appreciated the dialogue and the collective expertise between academics, representatives from local communities, and then wastewater representatives. I had maybe just a quick run through of several thoughts and comments from the discussion today. One was just from an overarching process for the technical advisory group. When we're talking about scoring systems or other types of rubrics for assessment, I think as technical advisory group members, we'd like to see those ahead of time before they're really deployed, and there's analysis and then presentations showing us. I think we'd appreciate getting a chance to provide input on any kind of evaluation or assessment. And I think with shifting to these quarterly meetings, that should be something that would be more naturally accommodated, this being the first one. I appreciate the head nodding. That's probably not being captured on the record. I wanted also just to reinforce the comment from Rob about the language of individual sewage systems and just having unity with terms that are codified. And so wanting to be thoughtful about how we take a unit of assessment and translate it as we're going forward for other applications. Maybe a peripheral issue, but just flagging it now when we're discussing this. There's differences between renters and property owners. And so as you're kind of contemplating how to evaluate this, that's something that needs to be considered. With regards to a data gap or just data sources you mentioned, counties, I think typically have a lot of information on permitted septic systems. And so I heard Maureen mention there was a county survey, but when I saw the slide in the deck number 26, I thought that may be another source to consider for building out that database of known systems. And then also, just when these projects are being pursued, oftentimes collection systems or what we call enrollees on the SSSWDR, they're not always tied to the wastewater treatment plant that's servicing it. And so that kind of creates this multi-party issue that we should be sensitive to with trying to make sure maybe all of those parties are involved in the discussions. And then, anecdotally, just from our members, I'll relay a few items that I've heard about just with some of the hurdles, one of which is CEQA lawsuits, and that just being something a lot of times communities will encounter. In one case, they had 5 different lawsuits, and so all of that litigation ties up these projects from being realized. Another one are county ordinances, and so sometimes with ag zones, the parcels, they can't have a sewer line running through them, and so that kind of creates an issue of how do you engineer a solution there. In some instances, with the cost associated with these, we've seen the requirement for the creation of an assessment district. And so that just adds more time into the bureaucracy and administratively. LAFCOs are involved in this process. And so that also adds in layers of complexity. And then in some cases, even if you had all the money in the world, that wouldn't have been what really solved it for community to do a project because of other hurdles. But let's say even you get to the finish line, a lot of times you're talking about $75,000 to get connected. And then all of a sudden a new sewer bill of about $1,500 a year. And so, if you're on a community with a fixed income, that $1,500 may be hard to absorb, even if you have funding to cover the $75,000. And so as we're talking about the roadmap going forward, we want to be thoughtful now as we can be about that. But ultimately, what does that individual connection translate to? If it's 1 to 2 million septic systems, let's say we get to 1 to 2 million septic systems online and sewered, well, then it's welcome to the world of regulatory development. And there's all sorts of issues to deal with: declining flows, water conservation on these newly connected pipes, aquatic toxicity for inland dischargers, nutrient removal for inland and coastal dischargers. And there's a lot of other issues that come in. So that decision to make a connection, it drives us to want to make sure that as you're defining a system of concern or an adequate system, that you have a very holistic look of what that decision is to bring them in if you're going to extend service, or if you're going to not have them do that, maybe what other steps could be available alternatively that are more economically feasible, but also might maintain protections in the environment, which would probably be one of the main drivers for having a system otherwise get extension of service. So with all those comments, I look forward to the discussion over the next few years. Thanks.
Thanks. And yes, I was nodding my head throughout. So all good comments, and I'm tempted to respond, but to some of them, but there was a lot there, and I think all those things being considered, again, to the extent possible that we can. I did want to ask though, certainly if you could just briefly elaborate on renters, property owners. I'm aware of lots of issues in this space and other spaces, but which issues are you referring to here?
One for sure is just how the sewer bill is charged and billed. And so if it's through a county property tax roll, but then the way that may get conveyed, the property owner to a renter, if they have an increase in costs. And so also, if you're having that kind of commitment to buy in, the renter is not going to be the one authorized to make that decision. And so that's another aspect in terms of your outreach and engagement.
Got it. Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Can you identify the gentleman that was just speaking?
Yeah, that was Jared Voskel from CASA. Did you have another comment, Keith, or was you just wanted to clarify?
Clarification on who was speaking. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think then we do we have any other questions or comments from the advisor group? All right, I think then we can move back to the chat. And I guess I'll go ahead and read the first question, which is anonymous. Has there been thoughts to imposing statewide regulations for wastewater systems? So I can answer that briefly. There are statewide regulations for different types of wastewater systems. So there are regulations, I don't say plenty of regulations. There are lots of regulations in place for different types of systems, which I'm not going to catalog here, although we can potentially try to do that as a primer in a future meeting. And there are thoughts always about potential new regulations being considered and discontinued. And this project is part of those conversations, but the project is not aimed toward driving new regulations per se. There may be gaps identified that motivate recommendations in that space, but the primary motivation here is around support for systems and communities to be served by compliant systems and potentially be integrated into compliant systems, but building very much on a foundation of existing regulation of wastewater systems by the state water board, the regional boards, which are part of the state board, as well as counties and other types of local governments. And I see, Keith, you now have your hand up. Is that accurate? Okay. I think then we'll move back to the question that Sam read earlier. And I don't want to reread it because it's quite a few words, but I think it's, I'll try to, I guess, read the question. Part of it was coming from Kelly Baroom. Will systems that are similar to using plant roots, aerobic tank surfaces, and microbes be reviewed as potential solutions in order to reduce contaminants back into the environment rather than chemicals, which could further drive harmful algal blooms? I mean, I think certainly these aspects will be considered, but I don't have a more specific answer. I think we'll have to review the technical details and come back with a broader answer to that question in the future, unless someone else on the project team wants to weigh in now.
This is Maureen Kerner. We're just starting to get into what types of solutions we might be looking at. So thanks for your comment, and we'll keep updating the advisory group as we move forward.
Thanks, Maureen. All right, next, I think comment, well, it's a question. I'll just read from Daniel Coates, Rancho Water, to the point of introducing a new term for on-site sewer, parentheses, septic systems. Is there room to discuss the individual sewer systems designation because of the lack of alignment with current law, the interest in advancing compliance with current law, including SB 1215, and the possibility of bringing in other systems or technologies that the needs assessment isn't addressing, for example, some advanced gray water systems? I'd say the brief answer is yes, there is room for discussing this term. There has been extensive discussion within the project team regarding this term. There is no perfect term in this space that can serve, I think, all of the goals we're aiming for here, but we both want to discuss that with you and you all, particularly the advisory group, but also the broader public. We need a term that works for at least most people, a majority of people. Otherwise, it's not useful. But I don't know if other project team members want to say anything about the individual sewage system, well, here it's an individual sewage system term or some of the other regulatory or, again, commonly used terms, and how we thought about bringing them together.
Maureen Kerner again. Yeah, I think at one point we were talking about calling it OATS Plus for the on-site wastewater treatment system. So I think, trying to find a term that's understandable, comprehensive, et cetera, and what all fits within that would be a good future discussion. I think we just kind of latched on to that and thinking that would be just the placeholder.
Yes, agreement on that. And I think that term we are open to modifying if we can come up with a newer, better term that, again, captures the variation and complexity we need to without being too many words or a new acronym that no one can remember. Oh, Debbie.
Debbie Mackey. Can I ask a clarifying question? So when you were talking about the OTS Plus, or when we're talking about individual, we're talking about single home versus a community septic, which could be, 10 homes, 8 homes, that type of thing. Are you differentiating between those?
I mean, right now that third category is a placeholder for capturing all of those, although there is some overlap in some cases with the WDR space. But yes, it would be capturing all of those is a simple answer. Okay. I'm going to move over to for now, final question from the public chat, which is coming from Leadership Council ECV, which is asking, how is affordability being factored into the needs analysis? Yeah, so that's the question. So affordability is primarily envisioned to be assessed in this project in terms of systems in the community served by systems that sort of are deemed to need or can have an inadequacy issue, and that's a solution that has a cost associated with it and the impact of that cost at the community level. So certainly including disadvantaged community status and median household income. At this point, it does not look feasible that we will fully have sort of rate and bill charges and property tax charges, given the lack of a statewide database on that topic. And so there will, to be clear, there will not be a standalone affordability assessment like you see in the drinking water needs assessment that just sort of looks at all systems and how much folks need to pay, in that case, just through bills, for their drinking water service. That is not envisioned due to feasibility issues in the current phase, although it is, I think, an interest of the broader community to make that possible in the future. Okay. And then it appears there is one more question from an anonymous attendee that is fairly lengthy. So I'm gonna try to read the first part, which is just the question. Will this group consider needs beyond water treatment to the very costly needs for wastewater treatment plants to protect air quality, reducing toxic contaminants, smog forming, and greenhouse gas pollutants? And I would say initially the answer is no, except to the extent that that involves immediate compliance with wastewater regulations. And there may be some overlap with respect to violations enforcement actions existing that we can parse out through data. We are aware, certainly, again, regulations change over time, and there are forthcoming regulations and regulations that may be more in the medium term in this space that could inform future wastewater needs assessments for permitted or regulated systems. But at this time, I don't think this particular bin of concerns will be able to be fully analyzed in this wastewater needs assessment. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. That was amazing.
I appreciate it, Sam. Any other? We only have 15 minutes left, and we can spend the last 15 minutes discussing any final questions or comments. We don't see any currently, so I think we want to open the floor one last time and see if there are questions or comments, or potentially, Grace, go ahead.
Sorry, that was totally my bad. No question.
Okay. Jesus Montez.
I'm doing. There was a question earlier in regards to guy mentioned about a facility or leaking. Yeah, and I'm from Visalia, and that's happening right now. And they've been having that issue, and then so that affects the other part of that treatment plant. So part of the stuff when I was looking at coming here, was like, what's happening in Visalia, what's happening in Tulare County. Somebody else mentioned, I think they were talking about LA. The Port of LA is having a whole bunch of serious things going on over there, with that, and kind of specific to what that man was talking about earlier about the algae, and you mentioned the bloom, whatever that is, and so that was something else that I had a thing about. Will we be looking at that in the future? As far as how that affects, because they say, well, that's surface water stuff, drinking water stuff, that's not wastewater stuff. But I also come with the look of drinking water too, and water management, and then safety, right? And talking about that and the terminology and all this and that. And again, from a indigenous point of view, the environment and the safety of the environment. We think about safety in just human, but the environment, the animals, the plants, things like that, is also a concern for me, and how, wastewater affects that. Because it does, and we all know that it does, and it contaminates or whatever that does, you know what I'm saying? And then the last part where the person was talking about, other parts of greenhouse gases and all that kind of stuff. And I think it all intertwines, when we think about what we are doing as human beings, to that surrounding aspect of things, and that we should kind of consider some of those things. So I just want to say that much about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for those. I've been nodding my head throughout your comment, Jesus. So thank you for all of your comments. And we are trying to do that to the extent possible while also keeping the clear focus. But we realize, all of these things are intersectional: wastewater, drinking water. There's no 100% clear line between public health and environmental protection. And there are many ways in which the environment is affected by and affects, water and wastewater. So thank you for those comments. Do we have any other final comments or questions from the advisory group? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and assume on a Friday afternoon in July, this meeting has been long enough for all of you. I really appreciate. First of all, I want to thank the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board for hosting the in-person portion of this meeting in this amazing room, and accommodating the hybrid nature of the meeting really, as I think, flawlessly as we could. I want to thank the project team all for being here in person and online, especially those who helped organize the meeting. But most of all, again, I want to welcome and thank the advisory group, both in person and online, for joining this meeting, for your amazing, exactly on time introductions in a 45-minute slot across 30 people. And again, just the variety of expertise and experience and insights you bring and will bring on the project over the next 3 years. Again, our next meeting is, it's next quarter, and we will be following up with materials and answers to some of the other questions that you had in this meeting, both at that meeting and into the future. But with that, I want to adjourn this meeting and note that there is going to still be a public comment period starting at 12:45, or are we going to move that up?
At this time, we don't have any public comments to address the state board members.
So we can officially close the entire meeting?
I believe so.
All right. Well, I'll say happy Friday, everyone. Thanks so much. And have a great weekend. And we look forward to working with you over the next 3 years and beyond.